I'm going to start again. Hello, everyone back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to That Was the Week, my weekly summary of tech news with my old friend Keith Tier, the publisher of That Was the Week newsletter. We usually end with his X of the Week, but we're going to start there. The subject of his newsletter this week, he writes his editorial about dreams and nightmares, and he begins with an X of the Week from the VC Doug Leone, who is announcing that he's going to vote for Donald Trump in the coming election as a VC. Tell me about this X. Why, Keith, you led with it?
Well, I led with it because there's a collection, really, because Chamath Palihapitiya and David Sachs today actually are running a fundraiser for Donald Trump as well. So there's a bit of a mini trend going on of Silicon Valley who's deciding that they're going to vote for Trump. Doug Leone is an extremely well thought of Sequoia Capital investor who has in the past been pro-Trump and then deviated, said he was not going to vote for Trump, and now he's gone back. His reasoning's very vague, isn't it?
Let's read for people who aren't watching. Let's read out the X. It was he wrote this on June 3rd. I have become increasingly concerned about the general direction of our country, the state of our broken immigration system, the ballooning deficit, and the foreign policy missteps, among other issues. Therefore, I am supporting former President Trump in this coming election. So he notes three things: the immigration deficit, foreign policy missteps.
It's a little bit like saying, I've become disillusioned with Old Trafford, Eric Ten Hag, and the entire team. Therefore, I'm going to be supporting Wrexham.
Or Man City.
No, that would be
Liverpool.
At least Man City and Liverpool represents something you could aspire to theoretically. But
so you're not, Keith. So in the editorial, you articulate your own ambivalence about voting for Trump. You say it's a big no-no for me personally. I don't want to turn this conversation into just another conversation about Trump versus Biden, because as we speak, I got an email from Reid Hoffman linking with an op-ed he has in this week's Economist about American business shouldn't be empowering a criminal. So the powers that be in Silicon Valley are lining up for or against Trump. It's not just for Trump. People like Hoffman, who I have a great deal of time and respect for, are financing the anti-Trump forces. But do you see with Leone and some of the others a real sharp shift amongst investors to Trump?
No, but I do see a greater willingness to own up to it, which is probably the only new thing here. A boldness.
You mean own up? You mean sort of
confess that that's where they're going to be.
Well, in our mind, it's a confession, but for them, there's no need to confess. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. They like the guy.
No, but that is new. I mean, I think it is new. I was pretty taken aback when the All In podcast announced they were doing a fundraiser for Trump. I mean, I wouldn't put anything past them, but that did surprise me. And, a few weeks ago, Marissa Mayer held a fundraiser for Biden. So, yes, Silicon Valley's getting drawn into the election and picking sides. The real drive of my editorial is that it's pretty hard to feel good about either side. But if you have to pick one, the lesser evil is usually the place to go. And that feels like Biden to me.
It's interesting in the Leone X that he doesn't talk about tech. He doesn't talk about business. He talks about the broken immigration system that was broken before Biden. I mean, Trump didn't deal with it when he was president any better. The ballooning deficit, which isn't really a tech issue, and foreign policy missteps. So,
and all of those, if you hold it on the screen, all of those are like BuzzFeed headlines. They don't mean anything. The state of our broken immigration system obviously means the immigration system is broken, but that could mean Doug Leone is basically anti-immigrant, or he could mean he's pro-immigrant and wants a better system. Who knows what he means? But given that he's voting for Trump, you got to assume that he's pretty much a rabid racist, because that's what Trump is. On the foreign policy stuff, well, what is he saying? Is he saying that he's for Israel, or is he saying he's for the Palestinians, or is he for more help with Ukraine or less? It's totally unclear. And Trump, by the way, isn't really clear on any of those issues. So when he states those issues and says, "Therefore, I'm voting for Trump," there's a big missing hole of logic there, isn't there?
And in your editorial, you talk about a piece, a video, the video of the week from Andreessen and Horowitz entitled "The American Dream." Are Andreessen and Horowitz, are they pro-Trump, and do they link the crisis of the American dream with the policy of the Biden administration?
I don't think they've ever stated whether they're pro-Trump or anti-Trump. Their American dream narrative is tied to an investment strategy they call American dynamism, which is basically what happened after the New Deal. It's kind of the New Deal, but in a new age, where they're looking for a new industrial revolution, in quotes. It's really an AI revolution and a digital revolution. And they're looking to the government to be a big investor in that, as well as private capital. They are often going on about socialism and communism as a problem, which is really just using labels to define the Democrats. So they're definitely not, strongly pro-Democrat in any way whatsoever. What I like about what they say is they focus on doing things with money and technology, which I think is getting close to the real story that needs to be discussed.
And it seems one of the things that Trump and Biden are both on the same page when it comes to China. They're both in an odd way statists. I mean, Biden's invested massively in the state and chips policy, investment in the environment. Trump is certainly no neoliberal. So is there a big difference in terms of tech policy? I'm assuming that Trump also, if he comes back to power, won't be particularly friendly to big tech, to Google, to Facebook, to Amazon, to Apple.
Yeah, they're rhetorically they try to sound different, and Biden's giving back students some of their debt. He does do some things that are different to what Trump would do, but they're very close on foreign policy. They're very close on immigration. They're very close on the economy. So the big issues they're quite close on. I think abortion is one where Biden feels very different, and I'm on his side of that one.
And there's no tech angle on that one, I assume.
It's not a tech angle, but it is a social angle, and so I think guns, rhetorically they're different, but actually in practice not that different.
Yeah, but let's keep it on the tech, Keith, because otherwise.
Well, on tech, I think.
What about on his investment in the so-called chips bill? I mean, is that recognized? Is it real? What's the take in Silicon Valley when you and your wealthy VC friends get together in Palo Alto? Are you muttering about the absence of investment in innovation in America, or applauding it, or critiquing it?
Well, the CHIPS Act is basically a huge expenditure to compensate for the fact that there's a trade war with China and that Taiwan may or may not be a trusted place in the future. So it's really a foreign policy decision more than it is a technology decision. And I'd be surprised if Trump doesn't agree with it, because he's an economic nationalist as well. They're both pretty isolationist. They're both anti-free trade in this period, at least. So, I don't think the CHIPS Act is really a technical decision. In terms of technology, Biden is more anti-tech than Trump. Biden clearly, yesterday, the FTC and the Department of Justice announced a new investigation of NVIDIA, Microsoft, and OpenAI, which didn't make the newsletter because my cutoff time happened and then it happened. But that is very much a Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Lena Khan initiative.
Your friend Lena.
Exactly. And Trump is...
Keith, you're not. You said voting for Trump is and I want you to wear your tech cap because I don't want to turn this
That's
into
what we do. That's what we do.
So you're saying voting for Trump is a big no-no, but you're not particularly keen on Biden. I've always thought of you as a kind of left libertarian. Might you be interested in RFK if he began to articulate a more sane libertarian approach to innovation? Who would you like to see? Who could excite you? You don't like Trump. Biden doesn't excite you. Where might you write a check, for example?
I think anybody that understands how to rebuild a declining economy, and it's really about innovation. It's the New Deal for 2025.
But Biden would claim he's done that. He's poured masses of money into
infrastructure,
environmental innovation, into green tech.
I don't think so. I think he's put money into railways and building bridges and roads. For America to survive as the most wealthy country on earth, it really has to leapfrog the newly developing technological economies like China and the rest of Southeast Asia. And if it doesn't, it will become like England, which is a nice place to visit, which used to be number one, but is now not. And I don't see a politician picking up on the themes that Andreessen and Horowitz are talking about and doing really practical things to make that real. In fact, on AI, they're doing the opposite. They're trying to slow it down, if not destroy it through regulation. It's hard to feel optimistic about the government. So I do end up being a libertarian. And these days I find it very hard to define left and right, to be honest. What does it mean to be a libertarian? It means believing in human beings, technology, and innovation, and not really believing in government, which is sad because I want to believe in government. I do believe the government of the people, for the people, and by the people is the ideal. I don't think we have it.
Yeah, when I hear you say, well, I don't believe in political categories anymore, it perhaps suggests a man who in his youth was left and now is right and is not willing to acknowledge. But maybe I'm being unfair. So I want to move on to some more hard tech news of the week, Keith, but give me just briefly a couple of things that you would like to see happen that's doable. Maybe in terms of AI, you're not in favor of aggressive regulation, but you have to acknowledge that there's a need for some regulation. One of the stories this week is about OpenAI employees warning of advanced AI dangers. Still, the OpenAI company, I want to get to that in a second, is, I wouldn't say in crisis, but certainly there's a great deal of controversy. Isn't it important to call on the impact of this? And there is a role for government.
Well, what I'd like to see is absolute free trade in tech between the whole world, including China. I'd like to see shared research and open source research so that human beings collectively can move faster to make good things. I would absolutely disagree with the employees and former employees letter. I think they're basically not representatives of the future. They're kind of like scared little children. I don't believe there's any danger at all with AI. I think it's made up.
Again, some people might say, well, these people have been working with it. You haven't. So they have every right to call out its dangers.
Well, I work with all kinds of things that I don't understand. And they're typically doing very specific jobs. They're not the big thinkers that invented the whole thing.
Well, some of the senior people have left. One of the stories that I was particularly intrigued with this week is you include it in the newsletter. I think I sent you the link. Is a Wall Street Journal. I don't know if it's a hatchet job on Altman, but the title is "The Opaque Investment Empire Making OpenAI's Sam Altman Rich." It makes him look pretty slimy. What do you make of this piece and the increasing media hostility to Altman?
Yeah. Well, I think firstly it documents his investments, and
Is it true, do you think?
oh, I'm sure it's entirely
I mean,
true.
the way I read it was he doesn't take any money from OpenAI, but he benefits in terms of his startup investments. Um, a lot of what he's doing benefits those startup investments at OpenAI with OpenAI's policy. So he's making billions as the OpenAI CEO without acknowledging it.
I don't think he doesn't acknowledge it, to be honest. I mean, most of these investments predate OpenAI by a long way. For example, the one into Reddit or Stripe, which are two very big ones. I do think he acknowledges it. He just doesn't focus on it because he's quite humble and focused. So I don't think this
I
is.
don't know if anyone would use the H word with Altman. He's focused and incredibly smart. I don't think there's anything. I mean, there's a sort of a faux humility about
Well,
it.
he doesn't boast in the same way that Jason Calacanis does about all the investments he's made. You know?
Yeah, because he's a success and Jason isn't. Jason's a
But
loser.
that said, honestly, I think this article makes him look like a genius. To be honest, he's built up a fantastic
Yeah,
several
I
billion
agree.
dollars.
He is a genius. I think. Well, I don't think there's any doubt. You've always had a great deal of admiration. I mean, in a more broad sense, though. I mean, Tim Cook wasn't a VC before he became CEO. The CEO of Google. These are not VCs. Can one be a VC, an accelerator investor, and be the CEO of a company and not have these massive conflicts of interest?
Well, I'd split it up a little bit. So, firstly, Sam is part of a culture, especially at Y Combinator, where it was normal for individuals to invest personally in companies that the organization also invested in. Gary Tan, the current CEO of Y Combinator, created Initialized Capital. He started life as a photographer at Y Combinator and started making his own investments in companies he liked. So there is this kind of culture which Y Combinator is, I think, quite unique, but it's not the only example, but there's not many of them where individuals could make personal investments. And Sam eventually ran up against that when he left Y Combinator to run OpenAI. Um, it was obvious that he'd been doing both, and he had to make a choice. And so,
And
I
we
mean,
had that tweet from Paul Graham last week
yeah,
clarifying.
exactly. So, is it wrong? I think most venture funds would say yes. They wouldn't like
Yeah.
individuals to make personal investments. Is it unethical? Well, not if the entity acknowledges it and is okay with it.
I didn't say it was wrong. I just think it's leading to one kind of disaster or another. Although, of course, Jeff Bezos made an enormously successful investment as CEO of Amazon in Google in what, 98, 97. So it can be done.
It's quite common, to be honest, Andrew, for founders to invest in other founders, and that's more of a positive culture when you're helping them. The whole concept of an angel today in the Valley is really founders investing in founders.
Do you think that the media, though, and the Wall Street Journal's always been reasonably hostile to Silicon Valley, do you think the media's turning on Altman? Is he becoming the bad boy? We've all forgotten about Zuckerberg. There's no longer Jobs or Gates to kick around. So has Altman become the new superhero of Silicon Valley?
He's a hero to some people. It goes back to this whole EAC versus altruism thing. So there's a divided camp.
Radical altruism, the Sam Bankman-Fried scam, right?
Yeah. So there's divided camps, but it does feel to me. I mean, you're a fellow Brit, so tell me if you agree with this. But in Britain, as it began to relatively decline, it was quite common to pile in on successful people. And America didn't used to be like that. It feels as if the more successful you are now in America, the more enemies you're going to make. And the more brash you are with your opinions, the more enemies you're going to make. So this whole idea of the American dream that Andreessen talks about, where you champion the attempt to change things, and kind of not hero worship, but at least applaud the attempt. That seems to be in the rearview mirror. Who are the heroes today? Well,
Well, it may be true on Altman, although I don't want to have another Musk conversation, but I think Musk is beyond the pale. I think he's a profoundly I mean, I know you'd prefer him certainly to me, but I think he's a profoundly objectionable character. I mean, he's genius.
Yeah, but we don't. You're right. You're right, but Andrew, and I would agree with you on that. But do we really judge him mainly by that? I think you've got to, if you're going to do that, you at least have to judge him on SpaceX, PayPal.
Yeah, it's true. When Carnegie was around, he had steel factories, or Stanford had railways. The problem with Musk is, he is
flawed. He's flawed.
Well, he has the medium and the media. With X, he uses it to promote his own views. Anyway, let's leave Musk. He's not in the newsletter this week.
But your real question was this victimizing wealthy success stories.
Well, also in an America of increasing inequality, where a lot of people are really struggling in a high inflation economy, in an economy increasingly run, the dominant labor form is a precariat. When you read about these multi-billionaires, Musk or Bezos or Altman, worth 10, 50, 100 billion, it's very troubling. It's not a critique of them. It's a critique of the system. A handful of these people are have the same wealth as 95% of the rest of Americans. So there's
but Andrew, if you ask yourself, how did they get there? It wasn't by cheating. They got there actually because the world became smaller during the globalizing impact of the internet from the mid-90s. The scale of people who could buy products and services grew to billions. And so suddenly with mobile and with the cloud, you have these enormous companies which nobody planned. It's the accident of history is that you get big fast if you do something that people want.
You and I have done reasonably well out of this too. I think for many Americans, it's just, firstly, they don't understand it. And secondly, these people behave badly. They behave like movie stars. They say stupid things in public.
Yeah.
They have unimaginable wealth. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm not suggesting that they're not oligarchs. They didn't do some deal with a police state and got rich that way. Let's move on, Keith. What else? It's been a fairly slow tech news week this week, which allows us to talk more broadly. Any other stories? The NVIDIA story hitting 3 trillion. Will NVIDIA eventually crash? Will they be the Cisco of the AI age?
Well, it's worth knowing NVIDIA's revenue profit is about 60 billion. Apple's is 400 billion. And NVIDIA is worth more than Apple because it's growing fast.
Currently, at least.
Currently worth more than Apple, even though
they're the world's second most valuable company after Microsoft. Astonishing.
Yeah. So there is a kind of a math mismatch between NVIDIA and Apple there. Apple should be worth a lot more.
Is it the Cisco thing? Do you remember when Cisco got so valuable in the 90s because it was the pipes for the internet, and then the economy matured and Cisco now is just an afterthought?
Yeah. So I do think the NVIDIA story is worth a mention because it's one of those watch this story kind of issues. There's lots in venture capital this week. My good wife Jenny wrote a recap on what's happened in May. I did launch the next version of Signal.
Yeah, I'm going to allow. Usually, I don't let you talk about Signal Rank on your own show because I don't want you to become an oligarch, Keith. But I am allowing you to talk about Signal Rank version 3. It's not 3.0, it's version 3. So tell me what you've been up to at Signal Rank this week.
Well, the core of Signal Rank is using algorithms to predict venture outcomes. And we do that at the Series B round based on a lot of data from all the rounds a company does up to the B. And we've gone through 3 versions. Roughly every 9 months, we update it. We only update it when we got a better one. So each version is better than the last. And the way we measure it is what percentage of the companies picked become unicorns. What is the average gain on your money over 5 years? And for version 3, 31% become unicorns. And the average gain at 5 years is 5.6 times your money, which both of which are way better. And in the years measured, which is 2012 to 2020, there were 950 companies that it picked, as opposed to only 280 or something that version 1 picked. So it's able to pick more companies more successfully than previous versions. We just announced the 15th investment, that is to say, Single Rank putting money into these companies, which makes Single Rank the second most prolific investor in the world in Series B rounds in the last 12 months.
Wow. And when am I going to get some Signal Rank stock?
I'm not allowed to talk about it, but your time will come, and hopefully not too soon from now.
And are you, Keith? Is Signal Rank the next Nvidia? When are you going to hit 3 trillion valuation?
I think we'll never hit 3 trillion. The most we could be worth is about 100 billion.
Well, we'll take that. Finally, we've done our X of the week, which was Doug Leone's willingness, announcement that he's going to vote for Trump. I'm not sure why he needed to announce it on X, but your startup of the week is an interesting one, and I think speaks of I know you have a particular interest in the economic vitality of the sporting industry. There was a piece in the Journal this week about the NBA nearing a $76 billion TV deal. So why is it the NBA or the TV companies that are the startup of the week this week?
It's the NBA, because if you can get somebody to pay you $76 billion for 11 years worth of basketball, you're doing something right, aren't you? It's not my favorite game, I have to say, basketball. It's the opposite of what Americans say about football. Too many baskets, not enough competition, as opposed to too few goals. But this is an amazing deal, and it's happened because Amazon, NBC, and ESPN have competed for it. And it's at a time when the TV industry is in crisis. So it's a huge, huge deal for an essentially American sport.
Although it's a global sport, I mean, there's a lot of interest around the world in it because American teams are so much better than everybody else.
Right, but it doesn't really compare to football, soccer.
So what's the English Premier League? What's the value of their TV deal comparatively? If the NBA got a $76 billion deal, what should the Premier League be getting?
Well, exactly. The Premier League equivalent over 11 years would be something close to 10 billion. So only 1/8 of this number. So they're underselling the Premier League by a lot.
You should run it, Keith. And why is this a tech story rather than a media story? Will we be able to watch quote unquote TV online? Will most of this stuff get streamed?
Yeah, absolutely will. ESPN is moving to being primarily streaming, and that's already true, of course, with Amazon. So this is going to be streaming.
Well, finally, Keith, I know you're an expert and a lover of American basketball. Who's going to win between Dallas and Boston? Do you care?
I don't care, but I'll always go for the Catholics, so I'll go with the Celtics.
You're going to get yourself into trouble. So the Catholics over the Dallas team.
Oh, the Dallas team, I don't know what they are.
Are you anti-Mark Cuban, who's Jewish? Is this Keith the anti-Semite here?
No, but Texas, it's got to be Seventh-day Adventists, something like that, right?
Well, most people hate Texas, don't they? Well, that was the week, Keith. Not a lot of news, but we know now that you're not voting for Donald Trump. You're voting for Biden, not thrillingly. Doug Leone is voting for Trump. Reid Hoffman is voting for Biden. Not a lot of news this week. We'll see you next week when we hope that Signal Wank will have gone public and we'll all be celebrating with billions of dollars. So have a good week, Keith. We'll talk next week.
Bye-bye.